Okay, former students, today we're going to do a slightly different science video. We're going to do a little unboxing video because I bought some speakers, and you might be looking at these speakers and thinking, wow, they look kind of weird. I mean, who makes speakers, and why would they make speakers in this shape? Hang on, get that out there. It's a really odd shape for a speaker to be in, and the reason I got speakers that are this shape is because we have the return of dun, 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 the original NA model Miata from 1992, and I had one just like this. I had a 1990, and these cars, there's not a lot of room in them because they're two-seaters, have two speakers, one in each door. And they even have two speakers each in the headrest here. If I unzip this, just when the top's down and it's noisy, look at the age on the car, where the material's been covered up, and from where it's been exposed to the sun, how faded it is, because this car is 28 years old. If we zip this down and pull this panel forward, you see they have speakers right in the headrest, and they made them in this rectangular shape there. And they're 28 years old, so they're probably pretty torn up. I'm actually impressed that the foam baffles on these are still intact, probably because they don't move a whole lot, because these speakers, now you can see, I can actually see, like, there's tears in it right there. They are pretty old, and the ones in the doors are probably worse. And the nice thing about these cars is the pieces of the speaker just fell out when I did that. Have a separate little panel just for the speaker, so you don't have to remove the entire door to get that out. But look at that, that's pieces of the speaker that just fell out of there. You could see that whole cone is just totally shot. So we're going to replace those today. If I wasn't making a video on this, this would probably take about a half hour to 45 minutes to do all the speakers in this car, because I bought direct replacement speakers that are specifically made for this car. You might notice that these have only 3 screws holding them in place, and normally when you buy speakers they have 4 screws. Mazda went with 3 for whatever reason, but that cone is just totally detached from the housing there, and you get a lot of feedback and staticky brakes and all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna replace them and see what difference it makes. So here you get a little side-by-side comparison of the replacement speaker, which they made to be a direct replacement. It's got the same 3 mounting screw holes as the original speaker, same size, but you can just see the difference in quality of just a paper cone speaker versus a speaker with some kind of reinforced cone in it, with rubber instead of foam for the baffle. And of course this is brand new, so it's all hooked up. And just the quality of the tweeter in the middle of the speaker to produce those high range sounds, that this one is going to be so much better than the stock one, because back in the 90s, honestly, the stock ones were pretty cheap, unless you got some kind of specialty stereo, which I don't know that Miatas came with. I mean, this thing is so old, it still has a cassette player, which I don't have anything on cassette anymore. That head unit's going to have to go, and maybe that'll be a separate video. So before we install these new headrest speakers, and I just wanted to show you the difference in technology, the magnet sizes from the new speaker to the old speaker. You can see this old speaker was, you can see my finger moving behind it through the baffle there. The baffle's all shredded. You can see light coming through it. And again, it's just a cheap paper cone in there with that foam baffle versus a rubber baffle with a rubberized coating, polypropylene or whatever, on this headrest speaker. So this should be able to get a little bit louder and sound a lot better. So let's put it in and see what happens. Since we didn't get to do any electrical stuff this year, I thought I'll take a moment to just explain it using the car stereo as an example. So the first thing we need to understand is the formula for electrical current and how it relates to resistance and voltage. So the formula looks like this. It's E for voltage, because V is already used for velocity, equals current times resistance. And resistance is in ohms, current is in amps, and voltage is in volts. So when you have a car stereo in cars cars are always running 12 volts. That's what they run. So if you put a 4 ohm speaker in, then the amplifier is going to need to supply 3 amps of current, because 3 times 4 is 12. If you go with a lower resistance in the speaker, that's going to require more current. Let's say it was 2. If that was 2, then this would be 6. Then that's going to require more current, and the amp is going to get hotter, and heat is bad for your electronics. So when we look at the headrest speakers, since there's 2 in each headrest, a left and a right, you're going to have 2 left speakers and 2 right speakers. So let's just look at a pair of left speakers. This one will be behind the left ear of the driver. This one would be behind the left ear of the passenger. And they're both 8 ohms, like that. So if you did this in what we call series, where the power line comes in, hooks onto that speaker. That was a cat hissing. Yeah, Mulan really wants to be part of this video. And the negative comes out of that speaker and goes over to the positive of this speaker. And then that one comes out. That's what we call series. The electricity only has one path to follow. And when you have resistors in series, you actually just add them together. When they're in series, it's just the sum of the resistors. So that would be 16 ohms of resistance. And if you had that with a 12 volt system, you're going to have less than an amp. So these aren't going to draw a lot of power, so they're not going to get very loud. So that's not a good way to do that. So what we do is we wire them in what we call parallel. Instead of one path, the power wire will come out and just split in 2. And the negatives will come together and go that way. So now you have 2 paths for the current to follow. And the formula for doing resistors in parallel is you have 1 over the total resistance equals 1 over the sum of the resistors. So it's 1 over resistor 1, 1 over resistor 2. So those are 1 over total resistance equals 1 over 8 plus 1 over 8. So the total resistance is going to be 1 over the total resistance equals 1/4 ohms. And if you cross multiply, you end up with the total resistance equaling 4 ohms. And that is what the car is expecting. Hope you enjoyed this. And of course, right after I finished, Cat had to jump up. Didn't you, Ellie? Ellie, psst. Hey, Ellie, say hi. All right, so we're in the car, we're running, and now let's do a test. Let's see what's on the radio. Oh, nice. Because I'm easy come, easy go, little high, little low, anyway the wind blows. Actually have bass now. Little side-by-side comparison of the 2 Miatas. Pop-up headlights. The new speakers going. They actually have bass now. Headlights down. I call them Lightning McQueen is the old one and Jackson Storm is the new one.